Hello and welcome to Meeple University's How to Play Airlines Europe. Players play the role of investors in the airline industry in Europe, attempting to earn victory points by investing in the most profitable airlines. The game ends after 3 randomly determined scoring rounds which will occur during the game. As part of setup, create a deck containing the stock cards of the airlines that are in play. The rulebook will tell you which airlines to use based on how many players are in the game. Each stock card shows you the colour of the airline in question and a number which represents the number of that airline's cards in the deck, as well as the number of aeroplanes that that airline has in play. Additionally, layered into the deck will be 3 scoring cards which indicate the start of a scoring round. They will be layered, one roughly a quarter of the way through, one roughly halfway through, and one shuffled into the bottom 11 cards. Each player starts the game with 8 cards from the deck and 8 million euros in cash. Players simultaneously choose 2 of their stock cards, each from a different company, and reveal them all at once. This is the player's starting share portfolio. On each player's turn, the player takes one of the 4 available actions in the game: buy licenses, play shares into the portfolio, trade for Air Abacus shares, or take money. To buy a license, a player takes an aeroplane from any of the available airlines, chooses a route on the board which either connects to that airline's home city or which can be connected to that airline's home city by aeroplanes which have been placed in previous turns. Then, pay the cost of the lowest number on the board, in this case 3 million euros, and place the aeroplane on that space. Then increase the stock value of that airline by the amount of money just spent. So in this case, 1, 2, 3. The player may take that action twice, so may buy a second license on the same turn. Then, whether 1 license or 2 licenses were purchased, the player takes one of the 5 available stock cards in the stock market, or the top card from the stock market deck, into his or her hand. Then refill the stock market back to 5 cards. The second action is to play stock cards from your hand into your portfolio. There are 2 ways that you can do that. You can either play 2 stock cards of different companies, or you may play as many stock cards as you want from a single company. Whichever way you do it, you receive 2 million euros as a dividend for each stock card that you played, and that money goes into your hand. The third option is to obtain stock cards in the special airline Air Abacus. Air Abacus has no aeroplanes or on-board presence, but there are 20 stocks available for it. In order to perform this action, either discard 1 card from your hand to draw 1 Air Abacus share into your hand, or discard 3 cards from your hand to draw 2 Air Abacus shares into your hand. They sit in your hand like any other share cards, and you have to use action B in order to play them into your portfolio. All cards are discarded face down. The final action is to take 8 million euros from the bank and put it into your collection. One feature of the game is that the bank is limited. There's only 30 million euros in the bank per player. In the unlikely event that the bank runs out of money, all players have to discard down to 8 million euros and the stock market is wiped out and replaced. This is really a mechanism to prevent limitless cash hoarding. As the game progresses, the board will fill up with airline routes, and the various companies will move up the stock market track based on how many planes are put out. One of the features of the game is that some airlines, such as yellow and blue, contain a lot of aeroplanes, whereas some, such as white and grey, have access to only relatively few. As part of a balance for that, the 4 airlines with the fewest planes each have a special route that they are attempting to complete. If that route is completed, such as here, playing this route here, there is now a continuous route of white planes from Moscow to Madrid. In that case, in addition to taking the 4 points for completing that route, an additional 9 points would be taken for completing this larger route. This gives the smaller airlines a chance to compete with the larger airlines on the stock market scale. When a scoring card is drawn, that triggers one of the 3 scoring rounds in the game. The scoring card is given to the player to the left of whoever triggered scoring, and you then evaluate each of the airlines for who is the majority stockholder. Starting with the highest value company, evaluate who has the most, second most, third most shares, and so on. Then, the numbers on the side of the board, based on where that token is sitting at this point, tells you how many victory points received for first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place. In case of a tie, add the numbers up and share them evenly, rounding up. In the case of a player who has no shares in a company, they get no victory points. So, in the case of yellow, this player has 4 shares, this player has 0, and this player has 3. So, 9 victory points would be given to this player, and 5 to this player. Victory points are kept track of with these victory point tokens, which can be flipped over. They're all the same on the other side. It is a hidden victory point game. You then continue to evaluate all of the other airlines. In addition, the Air Abacus scoring is shown up here, upside down on the board. The amount of points for Air Abacus depends on which scoring round we're in. So in the first scoring round, the player with the most Air Abacus shares would take 4 points, second most 2, and so on, up to the third scoring round, where you would receive 16 points for the most Air Abacus shares, 8 for second most, and so on. In the final round, Air Abacus is worth the same amount as an airline which has reached the top of the stock market board. After the scoring is complete, the stock market is returned to 5, and then, starting with the player who holds the scoring card, each player draws 1 card of their choice from the stock market into their hand. Once every player has taken a card, the remaining cards are discarded, and 5 new cards are dealt into the market. Play then continues from the player who holds the scoring card. After the third scoring card has been drawn and evaluated, the game ends immediately. The player with the most victory points wins the game, and in the event of a tie, the player with the most shares in Air Abacus wins the game.